But just like, most domestic violence victims, we feel very isolated. We are very isolated. Our abusers isolate us and threaten us if we, talk to others.
Right.
Um, but also we feel alone. So it's hard for us to go even to the people who are closest to us for help.
Right. Hi, guys. I am your host, Megan Van Devender of the Empowerhood podcast. And I just wanted to let you know that today the topic might be harder to hear for some than others. And I just wanted to give you a heads up. But I also want you to know that our mission here at Empowerhood is to provide you with all of the resources, support, and love that you need to get you through your darkest times. So if you can, listen in and be encouraged. We are here for you. Enjoy this episode. All right, so today, hi Jen, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So everyone listening in today, we have Jennifer Peters here with us, and she is going to talk today a little bit about domestic violence, her own personal experience being a victim of domestic violence, and how she was able to escape and change her life for the better. So Jen, before you jump into your incredible story, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you? Who is Jen?
Hi. Yeah, I am the mother of 4 adult children, 3 biological and 1 adopted, and grandmother of 2 precious granddaughters and 1 grandson on the way. I am involved in church ministry, and I'm a life coach where I get to help Christians live their lives at their maximum capacity, which is a ton of fun, and I love it.
I love that. That's amazing. So Jen, why don't you start from the beginning? Tell us a little bit about your life, how you met your first partner, and kind of what went down from there.
Yeah. Well, we met and married very young. I was not pregnant. I was just pretty much just stupid. I had been raised in a Christian family, and in my late teens just kind of decided to do things my own way. I didn't fully turn away from my faith, but I just decided I didn't want God involved in my day-to-day life. So again, doing things my own way, I met, and after dating for just a few months, married my first husband, my ex. And things very quickly just went downhill. 10 days into our marriage, he just changed. He started becoming very angry, very demeaning, controlling, and things just ramped up, and physically things ramped up. And violence comes in all different forms. Domestic violence. There's verbal abuse, there's emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical, sexual. There's different forms of abuse, and he was a master at the emotional abuse. He played mind games all the time. Every day was a mind game, never knowing what to expect. But he also was physically abusive, and he wasn't the type who threw punches. He didn't hit, but he would control me physically, hold me in place, hold me down, or constrain me into a room. He would lock me in a room and not let me leave, or physically, bodily prevent me from leaving a room. Things like that. So there's different forms even of physical abuse. There's different types of physical abuse. And that was what I experienced most of the time.
Yeah. Now, you said it happened 10 days into your marriage. When you were dating, did he show any signs of this?
Not of abusiveness. Again, we didn't date very long. And I was raised in a Christian family, and I was always the goody-goody, right? Of all my friends, I was the boring one because I was a rule follower. So when I met him, he was the exact opposite of me, which was fun and adventurous. And so I was caught up in that. And kind of things just happened very quickly, and we got married very quickly. And yeah, like I said, 10 days. And I remember the day because it was actually my birthday, and he was just unreasonably aggressive and angry and demeaning towards me on a day that was supposed to be special.
When it started happening, like, were you able to question him about it, or was that just like out of the question?
That was out of the question. Yeah.
Okay.
He also used threats. He was very threatening. So anytime I would question him, it was followed with a threat like, you don't want to find out if, or don't push me, or, I'll punish you kind of threat. Eventually or later, he started threatening me physically, going from you don't want to find out
Mm.
to I will hurt you to I will kill you
Wow.
to I will hurt your family and your friends to I will kill your family and your
Oh
friends.
my God.
And of course, he didn't follow through with, to my knowledge, killing anyone. But those threats, he made good on enough of them that I learned very quickly,
Mm.
not.
Not to question. Yeah. Now, when you guys got married, were your parents supportive of him? Did they approve of him? Like, how did they feel about your relationship with your ex-husband?
No, they did not approve of him at all. Again, being raised in a Christian family, it was very easy to see it wasn't the right relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And no, my family, though they were supportive of me,
Mm-hmm.
and once I married him, they did their best to support the marriage.
Okay.
They did not really approve
They
of
kind
him,
of saw through him a little bit, would you say? Did
for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Now,
And
oh, go ahead.
when all of the violence was happening, I did not turn to my family. I did not talk to them. I did not tell them what was going on. I'm sure they had an idea of
Mm-hmm.
things weren't good. They knew that for sure. But and they would have been there if I had turned to them.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been. But just like most domestic violence victims, we feel very isolated. We are very isolated. Our abusers isolate us
Mm-hmm.
and threaten us if we talk to others.
Right.
Um, but also we feel alone. So it's hard for us to go even to the people who are closest to us for help.
Right. Now, day to day, 10 days into your marriage, what were you thinking? Like, were you working a job? Was he working? Were you able to like kind of escape during the day, or like what was it like, I guess, for you during this time?
Yeah, we were both working. I worked early morning into the afternoon, and he worked late morning into the evening. So there was that period of time where we were not together most days. However, I don't know how, but he always knew what I was doing at work. He knew, and he would tell me who I went to lunch with. He would tell me what I ate for lunch, and he would tell me, I know people, and I'm always watching you.
Wow,
Um,
how
so yes,
scary.
even though I was able to escape him, I was always watching over my shoulder.
Right, right. So, okay, so how long did this go on? Like, how long did you stay in this relationship before you realized you couldn't do it anymore?
Um, from marriage to escaping to walking away and never looking back was 8 years.
Oh,
Um, it did not take me long to realize I was in trouble.
mm-hmm.
And trying to get free. There were a few times that I actually physically left our home
Mm-hmm.
and went and lived with my parents. But even then, he was always there. He would drive by and rev his engine so that I could hear and know that he was there. He would call and make threats. He would just come into the home at times, especially if I was home alone, and he knew that. Um, so it did take me a while to
Yeah.
fully break.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Now, when you did end up going to your parents' house, is this when you told your parents about what was going on, or were you still keeping, like, just saying it wasn't working out, or
Yeah, no, I never told my
oh, you
parents
never did?
what was.
Not
We've
even
actually
after you left him?
not even after I left
Oh,
him. It's
wow.
just, once I broke free,
Mhm.
I really just didn't want to look back.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so it was just, and that was part of my healing journey. I mean,
Mhm.
I did have support. My current husband, obviously, we talked about it a lot, and he helped me heal
Mhm.
through that. And I had friends and some support through it. But as far as my parents, no, I never really talk about it.
Okay. Now as a support system, like, so you did say you had some friends that you did tell about during it. Did that really help you through, the really hard times, when you were still in the relationship? Was it something you really relied on to be able to talk to someone about it when you were in the midst of it?
When I was probably in the deep of it, I really didn't talk to anybody. Again, you know, abusers know how to isolate their
Okay.
victims and how to threaten them to prevent them from talking to others. It was when I was finally breaking away that I turned to others for support. My girls, my first daughter was born a year and a half after we got married,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the hopeless life, that the future, when I would look at the future, all I would see was dark and dismal and no hope. And I did not want that for my daughter. And that is what really gave me the desire to get out, the strength to eventually get out.
Okay.
Then when my second daughter I was pregnant with her actually, when I did finally leave the home
Okay.
and never go back.
Okay.
He would shove me around a lot, and he had shoved me around, and in shoving me, like, just jammed his fist into my abdomen
Oh my God.
to a point that I was afraid that he had harmed the baby. And that night I just decided I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So I packed up and I left, but it was still another year and a half of him constantly threatening, him making sure I knew he was there. He would never fully let me go.
But you did not go back after that
I did
day.
back
Okay.
to the home.
Now, you went to your parents' house, and did they live close by to him, or would he like drive a long distance to find you?
No, about 15-20 minutes.
Okay. So you're saying he stalked you for a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a year and a half went by. Now, I assume he didn't see his children, right? Or
He would pretend like he wanted to. So every once in a while he would make a plan with them, but he never followed through. I never had to worry about leaving them with him because it was too much out of what he desired, right? He was too selfish. He didn't want to spend the time.
he just wouldn't show up, or if you made plans.
Yeah. He wouldn't show up.
Okay. So it was really all about you. I mean, controlling you, it sounds like, not the kids. And he was never abusive towards your daughter, who was a baby, or...
No, he threatened once, and that with that threat, I told him it would be his last time he ever threatened the girls. And I guess he believed me, and he never tried it again. So,
So a year and a half of him stalking you guys. What changed? What changed after that?
I don't know what changed. I'd been praying, obviously. Like I said, I kind of left God out of my day-to-day life, but there was one point, I guess about 3 years in, that maybe 4 years in, I felt like, I needed to go back to God, that I was hopeless and empty, and that God was the answer. And so I did. I went back to God. My ex didn't let me go to church very often. Every once in a while he would. So I had to depend on myself to study and to learn and to grow closer to God. And in that, I knew his plan for me was not for me to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he had a plan of escape. And so just through years of praying and just trusting that God had the way, and one day it just opened up. My ex, he would always tell me, those words that every woman wants to hear. I love you forever. You're mine forever. You will never leave me. We will be together forever.
Yeah.
Normally, those are words of endearment. Those were threatening words from him. But for some reason, he was constantly cheating on me, and I knew that I could never catch him in it. I couldn't prove it.
Right.
And one day, I walked in and caught him with another woman, and for some reason, he just let me go after that. I was able to, start divorce papers. I handed them to him. He signed them, and he handed them back. And it was that simple.
Wow. And this was after you had already moved out, right?
I had moved.
Okay. Wow. So, I mean, that must have felt incredible. I mean, did you feel like it was really happening? Did you believe it? Or like, what were you feeling in that moment?
In some ways, it was very happy. I was very excited. Kind of wanted to dance a little bit and party. But in another way, it had been so many years of constantly watching over my shoulder that even after I remarried and even after I moved from one state to another, I would find myself constantly still literally scanning the crowd at the grocery store or looking for him in the crowd. So it took years
Yeah.
for me to actually feel safe. Probably a good 10, 15 years for me to feel totally safe.
Wow. So he let you go. After that, like, how did you start to rebuild your life? Because, I mean, like you said, it just took you 10 years to stop looking over your shoulder. So what were some of the first things that you did, when you knew he wasn't going to come back around? You were divorced. You didn't know he wasn't going to show up, but I guess you knew you were done with that relationship and were able to kind of start to mentally move on. What were some of the first steps that you took to do that?
Really, my current husband, my husband now, we've been married almost 25 years now. He had been a friend of mine before, one of my best friends, and he and we decided to get married. Actually, never dated. And when we did get married, because he was such a good friend of mine, he really helped me through that healing process. He was so patient and so gentle, that he gave me the space that I needed to start feeling comfortable and to start growing. But one of the main ways, truly, I became very involved in my church, very involved in missions and helping others, and just in serving others. And I was working with orphans and families, and I was working even with other women who had been victims of domestic violence. But just in serving other people and helping them, it allowed me to move beyond, to not allow my past to identify and limit my present, my now, and my future. So.
Well, I mean, I guess, so while you were in the midst of all of these like horrible circumstances, could you ever envision like a brighter future and like have hope? Like, I mean, looking at your life now, it's so amazing. Like, did you ever have that vision that you would be there, that there was light at the end of the tunnel?
I always, no, for a while, I'll admit, I probably didn't even hope. I didn't have any hope that there was a future out. But then once I became so determined because of my daughters, and especially after I returned to walking closely with God, again, I knew that wasn't the plan he had for me. So even though I couldn't see it, and it was like, the light at the end of the tunnel was just dark. I didn't see light, but I just had that faith that eventually, I didn't know how long it would take, but eventually life would be different for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, being a believer of God and having faith in God, did you ever not trust him in these situations, or did you always have your faith to kind of pull you through in these situations?
I always did have my faith to pull me through in the moment when things were happening. And again, he was like the master of mind games and the demeaning and the verbal abuse and the emotional abuse. It would be hard in the moment, but I was able to, while he was speaking bad to me, I was able to just, pray and let God speak his goodness to me.
Yeah.
So I did have that in the midst of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. For all the women out there listening, and possibly going through similar circumstances, I mean, what would be your advice to them to get them through? I mean, do you look back at, those years with your ex-husband, like, do you have regrets, or do you kind of take it as like, this is what shaped me into who I am? How do you feel about it now?
A little bit of both, right? I wish I hadn't had to go through that. I wish I had been wise enough to, just steer clear and stay away. However, he gave me two beautiful daughters. My husband's step parent adopted them. And then we also had a biological daughter of our own. And we adopted a 13-year-old boy who is now 31.
Okay.
So our family grew, and obviously without my ex, my two daughters would not be who they are today or with me today.
Yeah.
I can't regret that.
Yeah.
But I have chosen what did happen to learn from it, right? To learn and to grow, and then to use it to help others. So in church ministry and women's ministry, in my life coaching, I'm able to use so much of my experiences to minister to other women, to help other women escape
Mhm.
and live their lives, their dreams as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just being on here and speaking so openly about it, I mean, you're going to help so many women, have the courage to do what you did to, and take that leap and escape.
Yeah.
Do you forgive him? I guess is one of my questions. I mean, forgiveness is so hard, and yeah, I would just love to hear your take on that. Were you able to forgive him?
Yeah, that was a hard one, right? And at first, I would say the words, I can forgive him,
Mhm.
but I would feel the anger, right? I
Mhm.
would know in my heart there, I had not forgiven him. It took about, I want to say about 8 years. I can remember a time in my mind, it was a good 8 years that one day I had a thought of him or
Mhm.
something, and it didn't bring up that anger and that fear. It didn't even bring up the fear, the full like paralyzing
Right.
fear. And I did realize that I was at a place where I was able to forgive him. And you asked earlier, and we got a little sidetracked.
Yeah.
What would I say to
Oh,
women
yes,
who
yes.
domestic violence? And the number one thing that I would say is, first of all, to be aware and recognize when you are being treated, disrespectfully or abusively. Don't make excuses for them,
Mhm.
right? If you find yourself having to walk on eggshells, if you find yourself having to make excuses for him,
Mhm.
if you find yourself isolated,
Mhm.
where you don't feel free to go out with friends or get together with your family,
Because of
then
his
you
control, you mean?
right,
Okay.
because of his control. And it wasn't even that they don't always say like you can't go, but they make you feel guilty for going,
Okay.
or some other way. So you kind of feel like it's your decision not to go, but really it's not. They're
Right.
controlling and isolating you. So if you find that, just to be aware of it, and
Mhm.
don't ignore it. Don't sweep it under the rug. Face it for what it is,
Okay.
right? And if not every abusive partner intends to be. And sometimes you can speak, talk it through, go to counseling together,
Mhm.
and you can work through it and make that change in your family dynamic. But sometimes you can't.
Okay.
And if you can't, then don't hesitate to get help.
Mhm.
You know, whether it's a friend, a family member, a local church, a local domestic violence organization,
Mhm.
uh, a life coach, just get help.
Mhm.
You're not alone.
Right.
Unfortunately, so many women go through this, that there are people who are ready and able to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, even just someone to talk to, I'm sure would be a great start, just to be able to talk about it and not be the only one that is carrying that burden. Um, do you feel does it cause shame? Like, is that why it's so isolating, Jen? I guess is my question. Does it cause women to feel shameful of
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. And in my circumstance, um, I felt shame because I felt like I deserved it because
Okay.
I chose to walk away from my faith, and I chose to marry him knowing I knew he wasn't right with God and he wasn't the
Mm-hmm.
right one for me. He was just exciting at the time. So I really felt a lot of shame because I felt like I wasn't worthy of God's forgiveness. I wasn't worthy of God's goodness and to live a good life because I chose it. I made my bed, I had to lie in it.
Hmm.
Um, so there is a lot of shame in that for me. But
Right.
even just knowing that you've allowed yourself to get here is really shameful. And feeling stuck and feeling weak and powerless is
Mm-hmm.
also piles on to the
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah. Now, how do you pull yourself out of that when you're feeling that shame and feeling like you can't tell anybody about it because I mean, you think you did this to yourself even though you had no idea, of course, and even if you did, you still shouldn't be treated like that, of course. So, how do you pull yourself out of that, to be able to reach out and ask for help?
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine it's different for every woman because every circumstance is a
Mhm.
little bit different. For me, it was my children. It was my
Okay.
determination to give my daughters a future,
Okay.
right? A future that was not dark and hopeless, but a future that was bright and full of hope
Mhm.
and full of possibilities. And they are amazing young women now. They're both married. They both have daughters of their own, and God is working through them in some amazing ways as well. So I'm so thankful that he did make that way of escape for me, for them.
Mm-hmm.
But for other women, even if you don't have children, you are worthy enough.
Mm-hmm.
You are worthy enough to break free
Mm-hmm.
and to have your future and your hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For someone out there that doesn't have children, what do you think that they could find to motivate them to get out of the relationship? Like, what hope could they find? You know, a
Really,
future partner that is, supportive. I mean, what would you say, Jen?
and I would say themselves. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, you are worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Every woman is worthy of being treated with respect. Every woman is worthy of being treated for who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And for our abusers, it's really, you said earlier it was about me. It's really not about me. It was about him.
Mm-hmm.
It was about his insecurities,
Mm-hmm.
his brokenness, and his need to control me. It really wasn't about me. I was just the one who he had. And so just knowing that it's not about you, you don't deserve it. You are worthy of more in whatever it is that you need, whether you need to think about a future partner, you need to think about a career or a dream or whatever it is, grab onto it so that you can have that step out.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know you've been saying stuff about your daughters, and I, of course, know one of your daughters, and she really is truly amazing. Your whole family is just amazing how close you are. I love seeing them. I've obviously know your granddaughter and whatnot, and it's incredible, Jen, the life that you've created, and I'm so proud of you and so happy to have you in my life. Now, with your daughters, do they know about their dad? Do they speak to their dad? How do you go about that?
Yeah, they know about their dad for sure, their biological father, but he never pursued relationship with them.
Okay.
And so they've had, my husband, who's their adoptive dad,
Mm-hmm.
they've had him in their lives that he is their dad.
Okay.
So the father figure that they needed, they had in him. I'm sure there's been times when they've been curious, they've asked me questions and we've talked. And there's times when they've considered, getting in contact with him. But just knowing what he put us through, knowing who he is, and there's social media, so you can kind of see people from a distance, and it does not look like there's been change in his life. That they just don't desire that.
Has he tried to reach out to you?
It's been a while. He did. It's probably been 15 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you probably like it that way, right? Just
go
on
sure.
with your life.
With that.
Yeah, I mean, I know of, a couple women that, they have children with their abusive partner, and then they do end up getting out and divorced, but then they end up having to stay, in touch with them because of the child. So, I mean, in your case, you really almost got to get a completely fresh start, not having him involved in their lives and having, their stepdad that is a dad to them. So I think that's a really good thing, a little easier.
Yeah, it definitely was, for sure.
Yeah, because that could be tough to have to continue to see that person, I assume.
And legally, I mean, we divorced and he had custodial rights. Okay. He just chose to never, never spend that time with the girls. He never paid child support. He never did anything. And so it was really easy to just fully walk away.
Yeah. Now, the life that you live now, you're a life coach. Now you got into life coaching to, help others. Now, did your past relationship inspire you to be a life coach, or what brought you to this place you are in today?
Yeah, again, my daughters, right?
Okay.
I'm the mom of 3 beautiful daughters as well as a son.
Yes.
But I want to be that example to my girls, especially also to my son, that we can chase our dreams and we can live our lives fully, maximum capacity. We can live our purpose, our God-given purpose, and just have the most amazing life. Not the perfect life, right? Things don't always go our way, but I want my daughters to know that they're empowered. They have choices. They can do whatever they want to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do. I look at my life and again, not perfect, but I am living my dream. Yeah. I love my life. I love the people in my life. I'm living my dream.
Yeah. I mean, I really think you are. Like, you're always so genuine, so happy. And I mean, like you said, no life is perfect, but as long as you know you are supported with people around you that you love and, lift you up, and you have your family and everyone's healthy, you really have it all. And you have God in your life too, and church and everything that you do. And I think a fulfilling, career, it's like you get to help women and men every single day, try to find their way to their happy place. And I think it's incredible. Now, 5 to 10 years from now, Jen, where do you see yourself?
I'm living my dream now. I see myself hopefully very much like where I am right now, right?
Yeah.
Continuing that dream. Of course, growing, always growing.
Yeah.
Maybe with a couple more grandchildren.
I was going to say a couple more grandchildren on the way for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I could, obviously 10 years will be approaching those retirement years, but yeah, I don't want a whole lot to change because I just love where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. And I feel like that really shows right there that you are so comfortable and like happy doing what you're doing. If you're not looking to, have all these gains or huge goals just to like self-improve, over the years and just become better. I think that's really great. Any other advice that you can, give to women out there? Anything else that you want to add, Jen?
Yeah, don't settle. Never settle. You are worthy of it all, right?
Yeah.
Don't settle for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any special places that you like women to find online, for information, or do you have any information like that?
Yeah, I Instagram, of course, my life coach Jen.
Okay.
My website, if you're a person of faith, my website is calm.mylifecoachjen.com.
Okay. That will all be, I'll link it all below too.
Correct. And if you're not necessarily a person of faith, mylifecoachjen.com. You still get me, and I'm a person of faith, so I'm still going to speak into your life. But I do have clients who are Christian, and I have clients who are non-Christian as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. So if anyone wants to reach out to Jen, all of her information will be below. And are you open to people just reaching out to talk about domestic violence or just life coaching?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So if anyone has any questions or wants to hear more about Jen's experience, you can reach out to her. And for life coaching as well, she's amazing. You will love her and she will change your life. Jen, I appreciate you so much for coming on here and talking about this. I know it's not the easiest to talk about, and I know it will help so many women out there. So I really appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.